Hello, everyone. Same car, different parking lot. I guess I'm going to do my comic book thoughts as a car video. I do feel like I don't get my thoughts quite as focused when I'm in the car. Maybe there's sights and sounds and you just always feel like when you're in a car you need to have peripheral vision and pay attention to what's going on, even though I'm parked. And there's always the possibility of someone walking by and wondering what you're doing. I'm pretty used to doing these slightly public videos, but anyway, I feel like I don't have any time to do it at home, and I sort of took up some of my possible time to do videos the other night, doing a really fun live chat with Oddfellowsthoughts with Travis. And I think we did a really fun video. I'll put the link down below. Yeah, it was really great talking with him, and a good time. So, and this was kind of a strange week of comics because I went back to the store, I think Sunday afternoon. I went to two different stores, actually, and picked up some more comics. Including, which I don't have here with me, the Superannuated Man, but also some other things. So I'm kind of going to be talking about, giving you my thoughts on comics that some of which came out this past week. Some are a few weeks older than that. Yeah, wait. I'm not sure. I feel like I'm missing something else besides Superannuated Man. But anyway, I'm going to do them kind of in order as a countdown. So I'm going to start with my least favorite comic book, even though it was one I was looking forward to a lot, that I read this past week, was the revival of the Forever People. I think this is the second time they've revived the Forever People since Kirby created them and did a Forever People series back in the day. I think the original Forever People maybe lasted 11 or 12 issues. We'll see if this lasts that long. I was excited just because I'd seen previews of the Keith Giffen art, and it had that great Kirby homage feel to it. That Keith Giffen is maybe the best person at doing Kirby right now. I feel like he both gets the surface, but to a degree anyway, he gets under the surface. But, and he and Dan Didio, who are co-writers on this, were good co-writers on OMAC, as many of you know. And many of us were very sad when OMAC was canceled. But if this keeps up the way it was in this issue, I won't be sad when this Forever People Infinity Man and the Forever People is canceled. And the problem is definitely in the writing. And in the bigger choices that were made. So they've changed all the characters a little bit. I mean, I think it was a good change to change one of the characters to a female and make a little bit of a better balance in the group. But the character dynamics just feel very forced with the brother who doesn't approve. They now have Viken and Serafina, who used to be Seraphin, as brother and sister, and Viken doesn't approve of Mark Moonrider and Dreamer, who Serafina likes to hang out with. And it just seemed very forced. I mean, that could have been done well, I suppose, but they were just, it felt almost like they were just trying to change Kirby up to just for the fact to change it. And I'm the first to admit that my worship of Kirby can get in the way of me appreciating what other people are doing when it's so directly related. But even in kind of the still panels where not a lot is happening, I really enjoyed this modern update to Kirby's art. So I was ready to buy into it. And it's beautifully colored, I felt. I thought the coloring is done just right, so it doesn't look too old-fashioned or anything, but it also doesn't feel, that they've overwhelmed the art with some modern coloring or something. I'm tempted to almost go through here and read you some really bad dialogue and stuff. Some people, I've seen their videos or heard some podcasts where people really liked this. But to me, it was like about 3 things happened, or maybe 2 things happened in the whole issue, and it lacked a good story dynamic, and it lacked a good hook on the characters for me. And the pacing wasn't there, and the pacing and the energy, when you evoke Kirby, I want that energy because I see the energy in the drawings, but then it's not there in the writing, if that makes sense. The Kirby stuff, anytime he was working on books, but particularly from this wonderful era of his at DC, they just plunged you deep into wild and crazy stories at a frantic pace, but also juggling all the balls and keeping all the details sharp and crisp and clear in terms of what the story was about. Anyway, I will keep buying it, actually. I'm such a fan of the art. I'll keep buying it and hoping that it gets better. If it gets even worse, it may become harder to buy. But this was definitely the only book of the week that I went, all the rest were pretty good. As I said, I picked up Superannuated Man, and I would think that would be the next near the bottom of the pile. That was from a week ago, and Travis warned me that he wasn't recommending it to anybody, and I went and picked it up anyway. And I might still pick it up in the trade. It felt like very little happened, but it felt like it was slowly working its way towards a story, and I just didn't love it enough or get into it enough. I didn't care about it in any way. The art was kind of neat. So I don't think I'll get further issues of that, but I might re-look at it when the trade comes out. Then I actually liked Starlight quite a lot. So this Starlight would be, I haven't figured out how many comic books I'm counting down on, but it's third from the bottom. But it was actually quite good, which shows you that everything else was pretty good. I love, again, talking about art, I love the art in here. I love the coloring. You'd never know that this is the same colorist as does Thor. You know, that very painted looking Thor comic book. So I don't know if that's it must be the versatility of this color artist. Ives Sforcina. Or maybe it's that plus his ability, his knowledge of what, understanding of what the line artists are doing. So this has fun art. I still really enjoy the Flash Gordon-ness of it all. It feels so far kind of predictable, although I'm glad that so far Millar is not surprising me by something really gross or horrifying me or, raping me mentally. So I'd rather him just do his Hollywood thing that way than go in that other direction. It's a fun ride. I'm definitely staying on it. I think it'll read great in trades also if you haven't jumped on it, and you're just in the mood for some fun sci-fi, flashback to the serials of elder days. So, in a way, Starlight was a lot more sophisticated than Rogue Trooper, which I picked up issue 1, which was a month old, and then this past week issue 2 came out, so when I went back to the comic book store, I picked up issue 2. And I'm only halfway through issue 2, actually. And what this does is this collects recolored 5 to 7 page stories, usually 5-page stories, of this science fiction character, Rogue Trooper, that's from 1981, 2000 AD comics, the British comic book anthology. So I guess every week another 5 pages of Rogue Trooper would come out. And it's very basic. This guy is a genetically engineered infantryman, a GI, and he's gone rogue. He's not obeying his commands because all the other GIs were wiped out, and he wants to find out who betrayed them. And he has three companions who are human or other of the GIs. They're not really humans, they're genetically created soldiers, whose memories, their bodies were destroyed and their memories were downloaded in chips. And one of the chips is in his helmet, one of the chips is in his gun, and one of the chips is in his backpack. So it's like the bag, they all have, their names all fit what they are. Gunner was the chip he put in the gun. His nickname was actually Rogue before he went rogue. He has almost no personality except just this dogged love of his fellow GIs and his desire to find out who betrayed them. And he's on the side of the South, and the people, the Norts, the Northerners, are all bad and all worthy of being killed and slaughtered. And just because they're on our side, we want to save the lives of the people in the South. And maybe eventually they'll break that down, but it's a very grim story that's told on a childlike level. And I'm kind of surprised I like it as much as I do. There's something fun about these 5-page short stories, but I definitely feel like a kid reading them. There's no nuance. Problems are solved really quickly. It is just strange that it's all so childlike, but in this grim, brutal situation. And maybe that's kind of typical of 2000 AD. And definitely having it in color helps me a lot, in the nice color. And the fact that, I've, thanks to Watchmen, basically, am a huge a fan of, and that's not him, a huge fan of Dave Gibbons. But there's also another artist in here, Colin Wilson, whose art is actually very good too. It is weird. The whole thing is out of proportion to an American comic book page, so they just put this picture in gray at the bottom of the Rogue Trooper and his logo, which I find kind of distracting. I understand why they did it, but I wish there had been another solution. So I'm going to keep getting these, I think, for now. I mean, I could get bored at any time. I definitely just read 5 pages at a time and then put it down and read 5 pages more. It's just very simple, very basic. But I got a big kick out of it. I enjoyed Batman Eternal number 10, but there are lots of ways to pick away at this. And it's almost, somehow, the way they've written Batman Eternal, they've set themselves up for us to pick away at it, I've decided. They've given us stuff that makes us think too much. And then we say, hey, wait a minute, why didn't they go into more detail here, or X, Y, and Z? But I still really enjoyed it. The art was less good. You can hear me go on at this in detail on my Batgasm video, which I'll put down below also. But I wanted to include it here because in the Batgasm I spoil everything. But I thought it was a decent continuation of the Batman Eternal. It is Batman Eternal that made me go back to the comic book store. The weekly comic book, even with all its flaws, just really excites me, and I really enjoy that. Which leads to the next thing, which I'm now ranking above this recent Batman Eternal, at least, which is New 52 Future's End. I'd heard a few people saying good things about this. People seem a little reluctant to be really positive about it that I've listened to. But, I'd heard enough good stuff, and I wanted more weekly comics. So I thought, well, I'll give it a try. I think it's only 5 or 6 issues in so far. So I picked up the first 4 issues. I don't seem to have issue 1 here with me. But I'd read the 0 issue digitally, and I've got 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I've read the first 3, and they were really surprisingly good. I really liked them. Patrick Zurcher's art in the first issue was really good. The art in these next 2 issues is a little more, I want to say, retro. And I'm not sure retro to what period, but if I had to guess, to the late 80s and the 90s in DC. Not the 90s of the flashy image artists or anything like that, but just the basic style of the art is kind of the workman-like DC art of the 90s. Or, probably I'm not exactly right about that, but it's very workman-like. There's even, in this issue, there's breakdowns done by one artist and then finishes done by another. You don't see that so much in comics. So you get a solid story, and so far in the first 4 issues, counting the 0 issue, it's very consistent. You can't tell it's written by 4 different writers, and it all flows as a story. There's no, I mean, they slowly add on new characters, but there's no jolt of what happened to that storyline or whatever. I feel a lot of confidence at this point. It does, if not just the artwork, but it just overall feels like an older DC. I wasn't going to get it at first because first of all, the idea of, something set in the future was just kind of annoying to me. I just want the DC universe now. And then the fact that it was someone from 50 years in the future trying to travel back to our time, but missing and ending up 5 years in our future, it just seemed unnecessarily tangled. But they tell the story so well, and they keep all the balls in the air. I'm judging 5 issues versus 10 issues of, was it 10? Yeah, 10 issues of Batman Eternal. So I might be singing a different song when I get to 10 issues of this. But I'm really sold on this, and it seems like a much better controlled project than Batman Eternal. As much as I'm really enjoying Batman Eternal, I'm appreciating the craft that has gone into this so far. There's not the situation in Batman Eternal where 2 guys have made up the story and then other people fill in the script. It's just credits 4 people as the writers, period. And who knows what they're all doing, but it seems to be more of kind of an equal thing. Now, this is destined to be a low-selling comic book. They're mostly featuring less well-known characters whose comics were canceled very quickly. And that also made me dubious about it. Even though I like the smaller characters, I just thought it might be kind of a dustbin, place where let's just keep those characters alive, so we'll do this throwaway comic book, because set in the future that won't come true. But against all odds, so far, it's just doing a really good job. I can't wait to read issue 4. I guess I'll have to wait because it's about time. Soon I'll be going back to work. So that was my week's biggest surprise. But so I'm really glad I've picked up on this. I guess that's 4 or 5 more DC comics I'll be getting a month. It is somehow ironic that, it's called New 52 Futures End, but it just feels so much like they don't want to do the New 52. They want to do something else where all the heroes are older and everything. I will say the one downside of this, in my mind, I was already kind of upset when I saw Earth's End coming up as the next weekly, because that made me worry that Earth 2 is going to be, the comic book Earth 2 is going to be completely sort of interrupted and messed with. And there's stuff in here that refers to, I think, what's going to happen in Earth's End, and kind of tells us in broad strokes so far the ultimate fate of Earth 2, which I both don't like what they chose as the ultimate fate of Earth 2, and I don't want to spoil things, so I won't go into that. But if you do step into this series, which I think it's still doable because it's only 5 or 6 issues in, you can probably still pick up all these comics at a lot of comic book stores. But that's the caveat. You will kind of have some stuff about Earth 2 spoiled for you, I believe. unless they undo it all in the end, and Earth 2 will get reset to what Tom Taylor's doing with it. Funny how I get all involved in this and the roller coaster of the ups and downs. So another big surprise to me, I wasn't expecting to buy it because I actually hate the title. But GhostCritic talked about it, and GhostCritic has led me right before when he got me to get a graphic novel written by Shaky Kane, and now I'm blanking on the title. Anyway, I got at one of the comic book stores I went back to on Sunday. I got That's Because You're a Robot, and I loved it. So thank you very much, Mark. Oh, here's the bonus pinup in the middle. It's a crazy book, and I thought it was when I heard people describe it, even GhostCritic, I believed him, it was good. But the joke that they just each are arguing about who is the robot just seemed really lame to me. But it's such a wacky, fun book. You might say it's very European and heavy metal feeling in a way, but in a light, fun way. And the drawings the people are almost drawn like they're toy action figures or something, with these really bright colors. It's strangely compelling, and there's just all kinds of wonderful inventiveness in here. I will say there's a lot of pages, like 28 pages of story, so I don't feel cheated at all, but I feel like they could have put a little more story in here, and I know the whole story's kind of a goof, so it's funny to say there's loose ends, but I just would have liked them to take the story a little further. Maybe there'll be another one-shot, because it is left open-ended at the end. But that was my only complaint with it. I just loved it in a way I can't even explain. I never ever heard of this David Quantick guy, but if he and Shaky Kane team up again, and really if I was smart, I'd buy anything with Shaky Kane doing it. It looks like cheap and easy art, like it looks too easy when you look at it, but somehow it really works. It really works well. So I loved this. It could easily have been these last three. Future's End was really close too, but these last three books are pretty much tied, but they're also different. So I've given them an order. This is the third from number 1. This is number 3. Number 2 was Batgirl, which I thought was a fantastic Batgirl. Really lived up to the promise of the best Batgirl issues that I've read. It's like Batgirl exists in these two worlds, her personal life and this weird nightlife that she exists in. And the nightlife part, the weirdness just got weirder with overlaps with her real life from college. And I spoiled it a lot also in my Batgasm video, so I'm just giving you a general overview here. But so just these kind of different creepy goings on, plus her real life, and it's just told just right in my mind by Gail Simone here. And I just hope this story arc that basically begins with this issue. So you could jump on this issue. There's a few things that even I, because I haven't read every issue of the New 52 Batgirl, don't fully know who all the characters are. But anyway, you can kind of pick it up. So I think this is a good jump on issue. And so hopefully this whole arc will be like that, and hopefully it won't be ruined by any other DC crap in the meantime. So I loved this issue. Great cover, of course. Batgirl has become maybe the best covers at DC right now. And then I'm giving the number 1 place, but it could have been any of those 3, to the latest Richard Corbin Edgar Allan Poe story, or comic book, because it has 2 stories in it. Morella, which I've never read. I'm not even certain if that's a poem or a short story by him. And I'm sure that it's considerably changed by Corbin. It just doesn't seem like... But changed if it has been changed in wonderfully creepy ways. It's just such a disturbing story, but I loved it. And then the classic Murders of the Rue Morgue. For those of you who maybe don't know the lore of Detective Comics, the very first detective in literature is probably Auguste Dupin, created by Edgar Allan Poe, referred to in the early Sherlock Holmes stories as if he really was a detective who Sherlock Holmes had heard about or perhaps had met. Sherlock Holmes is clearly based on Dupin. Dupin used inductive reasoning instead of deductive reasoning, but it was the first character in literature that was solely a detective, and that's what he did. And so I don't know if Murders in the Rue Morgue, I think there were three, at least two. There's the Purloined Letter and the Murders of the Rue Morgue, and maybe one other Dupin story, so I don't know which one is first. But certainly Murders of the Rue Morgue is the most famous because it has the most bizarre crime in it. For those of you who haven't read it, I won't give it away, but it's beautifully told, and emphasizes the bizarreness of it, which Corbin loves to do. Another choice that Corbin did is he made Dupin and his sidekick, his version of Dr. Watson, whose name I can't remember. Both of them are of African descent. And you might say, well, that's unrealistic. But in fact, in France, a lot of American ex-slaves would go to Paris because there black people were treated much better than anywhere else, certainly in America and I believe elsewhere in Europe. So France and Paris in particular was kind of a haven for the westernized African who might not want to return to Africa. So so it's not impossible to say that that Dupin was African. Anyway, it doesn't really matter, but I just thought it was an interesting touch. So yeah, I love this issue. I know that Running with Comics was very disappointed with it. I'd love to chat with him sometime as to why. But I thought it was another great Corbin issue. And I guess Travis told me that they're now going to come out with a hardback with all of them. So this possibly is the last one. We don't really know. Or maybe they're just collecting what he's done so far. If there's any Poe stories left to do, I hope he does them. I think there's a number that he hasn't done yet that are pretty famous. Yeah. So, I'm going to have to go back to work. And it was fun chatting about comics with you. Oh, you know what? No, I guess I'll just do it in my next video. Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.